Well, here we are again, another Wednesday morning with Win with Willie live broadcast. Remember 2022, the year of no excuses. You and I must inspire until we expire. So thank you for joining another broadcast with Win with Willie Leadership Talk Show. What a great start. What a great start of the week and what a great start of a Wednesday morning. What you and I do not see, what most of us never suspect of existing, is the silent but irresistible power which comes to the rescue of those who fight on in the face of discouragement. That quote is by Napoleon Hill, and I just love that quote. We all have that silent, irresistible power to fight on in the face of discouragement and opposition. And Win with Wille Leadership Talk Show is about encouraging us to fight on, to lead on, to serve on, to grow on, reaching our fullest God-given potential and becoming the best version of ourselves. See, the best gift that you and I can give our family and our community and our organization is the best version of ourselves. And how do we become the best version of ourselves? I'm so thankful that you asked. We must first learn to lead ourselves, because you and I cannot give what we do not have. And today, I have a person that's on the show that loves to give. And he has prepared himself to give to you today. I have Chaplain Lee Scott, a United States Marine Corps veteran. Absolutely. Let me read some things about this superstar I have on the show, and then he'll say hello to you very shortly. Lee Scott grew up pretty like any other boys, wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to be a police officer primarily, but he wanted to be a fireman, just like his father. Absolutely. He's pointing at it right now. But because of an accident while serving in the United States Marine Corps, Lee's career took a different path. Serving for years in the Marine Corps, but after the Marine Corps, he served as a worship and family life ministry. I tell you what, this gentleman is special to my heart, helping families becoming better at their future. Lee and his wife, Carrie, have 3 children. Just 3. I only have 2. But what's most important, though, it's important to him, and for our age, he's got 5 amazing grandkids. That's what's important. That's his heart right there. And this journey has taken him from California, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and now he's landed in this great state of Texas. Today, Lee serves our veterans and families through Dignity Memorial as a funeral and cemetery pre-planning counselor. He also serves as a seniors ministry of the Branch Church in Farmers Branch. Lee is a chaplain of the Marine Corps Assistant League, Chief Warrant Officer 2, James Randolph Detachment, and a board member of the DFW Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Superfire. Chaplain Lee, say hello to my audience, sir.
Brother Jeff, thank you for here. Audience, hello. It's good to be with you.
Absolutely. You ready to have some fun, Chaplain Scott?
I am ready.
All right. Well, good deal. I'm going to start out with this question, sir. Let's just get right into some nuts and bolts for where your heart is. What keeps you grounded and what keeps you motivated? What is the stirring force that really keeps you focused and grounded in your life today?
Well, that one's easy. That's Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen.
That's the, you know what? It's very simple. It's very foundational, and it's very structural to my very core. Is that my job is simple, Jeff. Mm-hmm. My job is simple. It doesn't matter what I do, whether I'm chaplain, whether I'm seniors minister, whether I'm a board member, if I'm a neighbor, if I'm a friend, my job is simple. I go out every day with the intention of meet and make a new friend, and then introduce that new friend to my very best friend.
Well, I'm hoping I'm in that category, one of those friends.
Hey, you know what? It was just a little over a year ago. You and I sat down at that table at CCVC for the first time, and we shook hands. And from that very first moment, I said, this is a man that I'm going to be friends with. And we made that connection immediately. And I thank God for that.
Amen. Absolutely. It is an honor to have you here today. Well, before I get into some other nuts and bolts, besides those 5 grandchildren that keep you busy and laughing and young, what would be some of your favorite free time activity? I guess you probably don't even have any free time, do you? But what would be, if you had free time, what would be that free time activity?
One of the I tell people on a regular basis, there's a few things that you need to know about me. But the number one thing that you need to know about me, outside the fact that I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, is that I am over the moon, head over heels, in love, beyond compare, with my beautiful and amazing wife, Carrie Sue.
Look at that.
It's a cliche, but she is the wind beneath my wings. I have Bette Midler coming in here. She is the reason. She's my why.
Look at there.
And one of our favorite times is sitting on the back porch, sipping coffee in the morning and listening to the birds and holding hands.
Look at there.
That's just a little bit of heaven on earth for me.
Amen.
It's a torture for her, maybe, but it's heaven for me.
Is she in the house? Bring it. No, don't bring it. And with that being said, now I'm sure you're taking your queen on a certain vacation spot periodically. So what would be that favorite vacation spot that you and your queen would spend time together?
It's going to be on the North Shore of Hawaii, the big island of Oahu. There's nothing like those big waves breaking on the North Shore.
Look at there. Look at there. Matter of fact, one of my chamber members I think she's arriving back to the mainland today. She spent a week in Hawaii on vacation. Matter of fact, she did arrive back today. And matter of fact, she said on Facebook, "It's cold."
It got chilly today.
Yeah, did get a little chilly today. Absolutely. Okay. All right. One more question pertaining to it's kind of silly, but I know you got an answer for it, and you have an answer for it. Would you rather be the smartest person in the room or the funniest person in the room? Okay.
Wow. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. You know what? I'm not good with jokes, so I'm going to lean towards the smartest. I'd like to be the smartest guy in the room because that rarely happens.
You and I say, I'm not.
I even think that's something I read in a John Maxwell book. That if you put yourself in a room with people that are smarter than you, you're going to become smarter.
You're going to become smarter. You grow. Matter of fact, and I'm like you, Lee. I do not want to be the funniest person in the room. And then even that, I really don't want to be the smartest person in the room, because if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So you can't grow when you are the smartest in the room. I try to find myself in those environments. And I've been associated with certain clubs, certain organizations, and I'm coming there to learn. Come to find out they was learning from me. And I said, well, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong club. I come here to grow. I come here to expand. So I need to find a club, an organization where I can expand, I can grow, because I have a growth mindset. So I like that. You and I are not very good at jokes. You're Marines. Marines don't tell jokes. And I was Air Force Combat Security Police, and we don't tell jokes. We have this serious dementia about it, but absolutely. We're good deal. Talk to us about your leadership journey. You know, you've heard me say this numerous of times. Everything rises and falls on leadership. But Lee did not get here by himself. Talk to us and share with the audience. We'll get into some other things that you do to help our veterans and what you do in the ministry. But talk to us about your leadership journey, because the things that you do are amazing.
I appreciate that, brother. I think years ago, um, I was raised by a mother and father that taught me the importance of the words of Jesus Christ. And there is great wisdom in the Bible. And I believe that we can get a lot there. But I wanted to take wisdom from a lot of different sources. And there was a gentleman that I read, and he talked about the fact that leaders are readers. And no matter where he'd go on vacation. He'd go on a business trip. He'd find himself in the hotel. He didn't have anything to read. He'd reach into the nightstand. He'd get that Gideon Bible out, and he'd read it for 30 minutes before he'd go to bed, because readers are leaders. Now, I'm a big Maxwell guy. You know that.
Yes.
John Maxwell, Attitude 101, changed my life 14 and a half years ago when I read in Attitudes 101, if you got a bad habit, you change that bad habit and put a good habit in its place.
Yes.
And that was revolutionary for my life. But there's another leader that I listen to quite a bit, and this guy named David Sandler. Sandler and his Leadership Institute, and he told a story once, and his has always stuck with me. He told the story of how they had hired a professional golfer that was going to be on this Pro-Am tour. And so they had 3 hacks. Sandler was one of them. And they had this pro. And so Sandler gets there to the golf course. He gets there early. He's got his golf bag. He's hitting there, and he's sitting there, and he's practicing and practice. He keeps looking around, and there's no pro. The guy they hired to be on their team to make them better wasn't showing up. Well, finally, about 10 minutes before they teed off, this guy shows up, hits 3 balls, and then starts to walk away. And he was angry. He says, "What are you doing? Yeah, are you going to warm up? Are you going to putt? You're going to chip? You're going to do anything?" And he came up to him, and he said, David Sandler said it this way. He put his hand on my shoulder. He says, "Sandler, if you didn't bring it with you, you ain't going to find it here."
Oh my, that's it.
And so that has stuck with me. So when I go into a room, when I go into a conversation, I got to bring everything with me. I got to bring my heart and my soul and my energy and everything about me into that moment. And I've got to be in that moment. And it's just, you got to, you turn these things off. You turn them upside down, you get rid of them, and you put them on mute, you put them on silent, whatever it is, because right now, I'm in a conversation with my brother, Jeff Wille, and it's the most important thing for me right now. Mm-hmm. And that's where I can lean in to you. And when I lean into you, you're going to lean back into me.
That's it. That's it.
And when we're leaning in together, we're going to become a stronger pillar that you're not going to be able to separate. And you're not going to be able to tear down. And that's it. It may be simple, but that's leadership. As I speak into your life and you speak into my life, we're going to lead each other to be better. We're going to be better men of leadership. We're going to be better men of God. We're going to be better men in the Air Force. We're going to be better men in the Marine Corps. We're going to be better men at Dignity Memorial. And we're going to be better men at Jeff Wille Leadership.
And Lee, this is one of those drives, because if my listeners are paying attention, what Lee is saying is that as a leader, and you have a subordinate is coming in to visit you, your responsibility is not about anything else outside of that. Is to focus on that individual in front of you. Lean into him or her. That should be your primary focus. Other words, Stephen Covey said in the 5th habit of highly effective, 7 habits of highly effective people, seek first to understand. The only way you can do that is to lean in and to listen with empathy and listen with understanding and to make a connection with the person in front of you. Why? Collegiality, collaboration, connection, loyalty starts to manifest. Trust starts to grow, because what you're telling me, Lee, as my leader, that now you have faith in me and you believe in me, and you don't see me as a task, you see me as a person. That's what I'm interpreting. So leaders, make sure you understand that and connect with that. Leadership is about relationship and connecting with people where they are. Where they are. I tell
Amen,
you what,
brother.
man, thank you for that. You can, man, you can preach. You can preach. Go ahead and preach. Absolutely.
I got to add one more thing in there. Just I had the blessing of living and working and being stationed in San Diego, California. Not a lot of people know this, but out there on Coronado Island, there's a group of those guys. They call themselves SEALs. And they wear those tridents. And those guys are spectacular at what they do. They are the tip of the sword. They are the best of the best. And I can't say his name, but I will tell you what he would tell me on a regular basis. And he said, Lance Corporal, are you front sight focused? Are you front sight focused? Because any of us that have been to the range know that it doesn't matter what's here. It matters where we focus down here. And when we line those things up and we get front sight focused, then we're going to be dialed in. Then we're going to hit the bull.
You almost paraphrased my inspire to expire. Make sure that we stay focused on the windshield versus the rear view mirror.
That is true. Amen, brother.
Front sight focus. Absolutely. And since you mentioned Lance Corporal and the United States Marines several times, because once a Marine, we know that always a Marine. And I thank you guys.
Hoorah.
I really appreciate the Marine coming together every November the 10th and celebrating my birthday. I'm so thankful. I am so grateful that you guys do that every November the 10th. You get together and all over the country and sometimes even internationally, you come together as a Marine Corps and you celebrate Jeff Willie's birthday. I am so thankful. And speaking of that, why the Marines versus Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Army? Why did you choose the Marines and over the other branches? What was your reasoning for that?
Well, I'm going to tell you the reason I tell everybody, and then I'm going to tell you the real reason. The reason I tell everybody is my father joined the Air Force out of high school, and he finished up and got part of his college degree, and then he went back in the Army. And so when it came time for me to enlist, I figure, hey, I got to one up the old man, right? And so I picked the Marine Corps. But it's actually simpler than that. I had actually signed up to be a Cobra helicopter, a Cobra attack helicopter pilot, and to do a training program that was a Chief Warrant Officer program through the United States Army. Mm-hmm. I was signed up. I passed my physical. I had one of the highest ASVAB tests that they had ever seen in Southern California, and I was headed towards Fort Benning. And I was ready to go to boot camp, and I was ready to go to officer training school, and then to Cobra attack helicopter flight school. Mm-hmm. The day before I was going to leave, the recruiter said, oh, I couldn't get you that program. We're going to put you over in this program. And I said, nope, that's not the program I signed up for. If I'm not going to do that, I'm going to go next door, and I'm going to be all I can be. Not in the Navy. I'm going to be the best of the best because they want the few and the proud. And I walked right next door because they have those recruiter stations. Yes. You got the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy, and the Marine Corps. The Army and the Marine Corps were right next door to each other. I walked out of one, I walked into the other, and I signed up in the Marine Corps in about 15 minutes. It was the easiest this recruiter had ever had. Salvatore Tita. I remember my gunnery sergeant that signed me up. Gunny Sal was an awesome guy, and he gave me the foothold of leadership because he was a drill instructor before he was a recruiter. And I believe that the hand of God was on that. And he got me from you know what? I'm thankful that I served in the United States Marine Corps.
Amen.
I'm thankful for Gunny Sal. I'm thankful for my drill instructor, who I'm still friends on Facebook with. And there's not a lot of people that can say that. Sergeant Buffington is one of my friends on Facebook, and I can still lean into his wisdom as I did from February 1986 when I was in San Diego boot camp.
My goodness. What a story. What a memory. Especially when you're remembering your drill sergeant and you guys are still connected after all those years. I remember my drill sergeant in this Air Force, and mine was 1977. And he showed up 2 weeks after we started basic training. And his name was Staff Sergeant Jose Garcia. I still remember that name because he was such a calming element. And guess what? He didn't yell. The other drill instructors was yelling and screaming and shouting. And Staff Sergeant Garcia came in very calming presence. And literally, we were terrible until he showed up. And all of a sudden, 4 weeks later, we were on a flight because we followed his leadership, because of his calming presence, and start treating us like people versus recruits. And I know he had his role to play, but he had such a calming presence about him. And literally, such a great deal. Now, your first assignment. Talk to me about your first assignment after you leave in boot camp, and talk to you about some of the mentors that you had on your first assignment. The reason I mentioned the word mentors, as you and I both know, we don't do this by ourselves. We do this with people that are standing alongside of us, walking behind us and encouraging us. Talk to us about your first assignment and some of those mentors you had during your first assignment.
You know, that is a great question, Jeff. And I got to tell you, who would have thought that my very first assignment would tie to my current duty station? But it does. Mm-hmm. I left Camp Pendleton, and I had, every Marine, you finish basics, you get a couple of weeks off, and then you go to your advanced training school. My advanced training school was I was going to be a warehouse supply officer, and we were going to go to Barstow, California. But one of the things, and I'm very thankful for that, Sergeant Richard Buffington, because he gave me the leadership and he gave me the will to fight through to graduate from my boot camp meritorious and get my dress blues. Now, back in 1986, the only way you could get your dress blues outside of paying for them is by getting them meritoriously. And then they would take your service record book and they would stamp dress blues on the outside of it. And so when it would go, it would follow you wherever you went. So I went to Barstow Logistics Base. Mm-hmm. I would checked in for my advanced training school. They looked down and they saw, hey, this PFC has dress blues. They said, Private First Class Scott, where are your dress blues? I said, they're right here, sir. They said, I need you to get those. Where's your shoes? You're going to get on that bus out there. We need you to go down to the cemetery. We've got a funeral detail. You know where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. My very first assignment, we got on the bus in Barstow, California. We went down the 15 freeway to right there by March Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. And across 215 freeway from March Air Force Base is California's Arlington Cemetery. And we listened to a preacher say some beautiful words over a retired and past brother, a one-star general in the United States Marine Corps. So we had this brigadier general and his family that was there. And I will never, ever forget the thank you from her when the widow of that brigadier general came up to each and every one of the pallbearers and shook our hands and said, thank you, Marie. So as far as leaning into me, as far as a mentor, I had about 10 seconds with this woman. But she made an impact on my life in a very big way.
And that impact on your life back then has mushroomed into what you are doing currently. And that's why I want you to segue into your current profession, the why, the where, the who, and the why of what you do today. Because I've heard your presentation. I have watched you work. I saw you work with some clients in different settings, not necessarily in one-on-one, but in a group setting. But talk to my audience about why you do what you do and why you do today.
The why is the good one. And 30 years of being a family life minister in different different phases of this different places inside our country here, whether it's in California or Washington State or Arizona or Pennsylvania. One thing is constant is that we're going to lose family members. People are going to die. And there were so many times that I would be called into a situation where I am sitting in a room with a family that has just lost a loved one, and the funeral director's there. And there's two things that can happen in this scenario. One, mom and dad made a great plan. They planned their burial. They planned their funeral. They planned their casket. They planned their flowers. And all the kids had to do was show up and mourn mom and dad. That's a good situation.
Yes.
And that made it so much easier for me to preach that memorial service. That became a celebration of life, not a funeral dirge. But what happens if they didn't? Mom and dad didn't have a plan. Mom and dad the kids didn't even know what songs mom and dad wanted in their service. Do they want Amazing Grace? Do they want How Great Thou Art? What verses do they want led? Do they want Psalm 23 or what? I don't know what mom and dad wanted because they never told us. They never put it down on paper. And so when I sat there in those offices with the funeral directors and with those families with no plans, I saw something that I began to believe over time that I believe was an epidemic in our country. Because I truly believe when we don't plan for our exit strategy, when we don't plan for our own demise, we know what's going to happen. Don't fool ourselves. If we don't make a plan, we're going to put our kids in a position that we would never, ever want to be in ourselves. Why would we put our kids in the position that we don't want to be in? And by personal experience, I watched where funeral arrangements became a beta blocker in the back of someone's head and in the back of someone's heart. And it stopped the tears and it stopped the emotion because now they had to find the money and they had to find the pastor and they had to find a casket. Do they want wood or do they want metal? Or what color flowers did mom want? Or would mom be happier in the blue dress or the pink dress? And all of that stuff caused a block for what really need to happen. The Apostle Paul told the church at Thessalonica, he said, I do not want you to be unaware about those who have fallen asleep, so that you don't grieve as those who have no hope. He doesn't say we don't grieve. He says when we have that hope, we're going to grieve different.
We're going to grieve differently. Yes.
That grief may be tears. Grief may be laughter. That grief may be screaming in delight. That may be just laughing hysterically at the jokes that we remember that dad used to tell. But when mom and dad don't prepare for that event, and our sons and our daughters have to come together and they have to be the mom and dad, then the tears stop and the emotion stops. And if it doesn't start back up in time, it could be days, weeks, months, it could be years. And that's where we have breakdowns. That's where we have the nervous breakdowns. And then we realized I wasn't able to mourn my father. I wasn't able to mourn my mother. And over a period of years, I came to know a gentleman at a cemetery in Limerick, Pennsylvania. His name is Ken Turpin. And he's still a good friend of mine. I was going there to preach gravesite services for veterans because the American Legion, the VFW, knew I had a soft spot, and I would preach this gravesite services for free. And Ken leaned into me one day. He says, you know, you keep coming here. If you come to work for me, you could actually make money when you come to this place. And I said, really? What would I do? I mean, I am a heavy equipment operator. I could dig the holes. He said, no, you're a salesperson. I want you to help me sell so that these families, and I remember it. Thank you, Ken Turpin. He gave me this DDA. He gave me this BB-8. It's on my desk. I remember Ken every day. He says, you're going to help these families get ready for the worst day of their life so that they don't have the worst day of their life. And that has stuck with me ever since then. And so I wake up every day. I said at the beginning, I'm going to go out, I'm going to meet new friends. I'm going to introduce them to my very best friend. Mm-hmm. But when I go and I sit down with people, I want to go out and I want to meet someone and I want to help them put a plan together so that the very worst day of their kid's life doesn't become an even worse day in their kids' life. And that's how I got to Dignity Memorial.
And Dignity Memorial, is that nationwide or is it strictly in the state of Texas? I'm assuming it's nationwide.
Dignity Memorial is the largest provider of funeral and cemetery services in the world. We have locations, over 3,000 locations in the United States, in Puerto Rico, and in Canada. And I have the ability to help families here in the DFW network, but with the transitory nature of things, if you move, you can take those plans from DFW and move them down to Orlando, Florida, or San Diego, California, or up north somewhere in Wisconsin. I don't know why we'd want to go back up there. But if the grandkids are up there, I can understand why grandma and grandpa want to go.
Let me ask you this right quick, and I'm going to type it in. Give me a phone number right quick, and I can type it and put it on the screen very, very quickly. They can reach out to you.
The best number to reach me is 469 490 0054.
All right. Well, good. I'm going to put that on the screen right quick, and I'm going to allow people to remember now. 469 490 0054, and you can reach out to this. You can reach out because if you got any questions, this is what you need to see right here. Okay. Give Lee a call. Talk to him. He's very passionate. The worst day doesn't have to be the worst day. Amen. And you can grieve, and you can grieve. You can grieve. I love your passion. I'm going to leave this number running because they can reach out to you. I want the folks to reach out to you. Talk to me about one of those situations when you experienced that worst day and what you have to do to mitigate that for that family that didn't prepare.
You know, there's going to be 3 girls that hear this, and because they still watch my Facebook feed, and when I put this up there, they're going to be really mad at me. But I'm not going to say any names. But I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about 3 girls that lost their mom. Now, mom had a plan. She had her funeral services picked out. She had her gravesite picked out. And this mom was very frugal. Everything was planned out, including my salary, my honorarium to preach both the celebration of life and her gravesite service. But the state of the relationship between these 3 girls was strained with their mother. One girl had a real good relationship with her. One girl had a so-so relationship with her. And the third daughter had a very strained relationship with her mother. And when they sat there in the office with the funeral director and they were going over mom's plan, they saw the casket that was picked, and it was very simple. It was very simple. It was much like this woman that I loved so much because of her simple mind and her simple heart. She loved people, and instead of spending a lot of money on that funeral service, she wanted to take care of other people. And those girls, because of their relationships with their mom, said, you know what, Mom was so good to us. We should upgrade her, and we should get a better casket. And they've got that gold casket that we just saw. It was so beautiful. And Jeff, it was $23,000 for a casket. And the girls started talking, and they talked themselves into buying this casket. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I gotta time out here. It says, because the last person I know that came back from the grave was Jesus Christ. But if you want your mom to come back here and snatch each one of your heads bald-headed, then you get that $23,000 casket, and she'll be back here just like that. They looked at me like I had stabbed them in the back. And there was a moment of silence. And then all of a sudden, there was a laughter that exploded like you wouldn't believe. The funeral director had no idea what was going on. But they finally got it. They finally got what their mom was all about. She loved them so much that she put together this plan so that $23,000 casket she wouldn't be using, they could take that $23,000 and they could put it towards the college education toward those 6 grandchildren. And they figured it out just like that. Now, there was about 20 minutes of laughter that was mixed with some tears. And that went back to laughter and back to tears a few times. We went through an entire box of Kleenex. Once we got through that, and we got through the next 3 days, those girls figured out how much Mama loved them. And just like what you said, and you and I've had this conversation before, if we truly love our family, what are we going to do? We're going to give them the best version of ourselves. I got it just a little bit different. If the greatest gift of love, outside of the foundational faith that we give our children, outside of those that concrete that we got them steadfast and sure, walking in the armor of God, the very next thing that we can do and show them how much we love them is making sure that they don't have to do what we should be doing. Now, that's the key there. When we lock in our future plans, when we put things together and we lock those things in, not only are we going to save money, I said, yes, save money. On average, funeral and cemetery costs double every 10 years. I'm 55 years old. So if I buy a plan today, 65, 75, 85, there's the golden number. We mostly live about 85 years, 30 years from now. So let's say that's a $10,000 arrangement. 10,000, 20,000, $40,000. Yeah, $10,000 sounds great. Now, who knows what I just filled up with gas. It cost me $75 today. We all know about inflation. We all know about whatever's going on. But if I can save money, if I can save my children a headache, a strife, a fight, an argument over what casket I'm going to want, really? And we can nail it down, and we can take care of business. And you know what? That's what being a leader is.
That's it. The most difficult person to lead is to lead thyself and to lead thy family. And you've got to set the example and set the tone. And that becomes, I won't share the story I've had from my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is retired 06, Air Force 06, and he have shared some stories with me. And I was listening to the Honor Guard presentation today, And I was the gentleman that came up and did the honor guard presentation and talked about that. He and I talked afterwards because those men and women at the DFW National Cemetery, when I was active duty, my last year and a half, I was responsible for those men and women at the national cemeteries, preparing those honors and tributes. At that time, we had all branches of service, and I believe now only Dice Air Force Base is contributing to that. But when I was a superintendent of the Joint Service Honor Guard, we had all branches of service to include active duty men and women coming from Fort Hood, Texas. And we spoke about that today, the significance of that. So he and I will be in. I want to share my expertise, and I want him to share what he's going through to be able to add some value to provide some dignity for those men and women and those families at the DFW National Airport. And of course, he's all over the DFW area. But I want to ask this because a reason I'm leaving that number on the screen, Lee, because I want people to write that number, remember that number, and I want them to hear Lee Scott. I want them to go to bed tonight saying, Lee Scott, I need to call Lee Scott tomorrow. I need to call Lee Scott. I want your name. It's a very simple name, Lee and Scott. It's not difficult to pronounce. It's not difficult to remember. But what you do is significantly important, and you're leading by example. I want to capture all of this by speaking about something special about you. And the reason I say something special about you is that if you have to have a book written about you, about Lee Scott, what would be the title of the book? Why? And what would be the summary of the book and why? That's where I like to end my shows. I want you to capture Lee Scott and share the particular and special things about you. I have a book. I pick up a book at Barnes & Noble. I go on Amazon. I buy a book, and I'm going to buy Lee Scott book. What title am I looking for, and what's the summary of the book?
That's a good one, brother. You know what? It's got to be love your brother. It really does. In this world that we live, I quoted the Apostle Paul. He wrote more than half of the New Testament, so we quote him an awful lot. But he told Timothy, 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, he says, "For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of self-discipline." There's 3 chapters in that book. There's a chapter on self-discipline, there's a chapter on power, and there's a chapter on love. But it was also that same Apostle Paul that told the church at Corinth that faith, hope, and love, these 3 things exist, but the greatest of these is love. And it was love that it really was. I told a funny story. It was love that made me join the Marine Corps. It was love that made me go into the ministry. It was love that made me sign the papers and go to work for Dignity Memorial. Because if we don't have love, that same passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 says that we're just like a clanging cymbal. Love is where it is.
The book, the title is Love Thy Brother.
Yeah.
The book, I'm not sure when it's coming out, but we do know what the title is. If you feel like it, you want to go on Amazon and start searching for it right now. You probably found a book, but it won't be Lee Scott book. We're going to wait for the book by Lee Scott, because right now, guess what? Even though it's not in print, but the book is being written. Why is it being written? Because we're living our story. We are living our passion, and we're living our purpose. And you and I, Lee might not write the book. It might be one of his grandchildren that write the book, because they watched their grandfather live out his legacy, live out his life. And they capture that in a book. And that's why we are writing our book. We are writing our chapter. We are writing our title, and we are living our life. And it is being captured every day in our walk. And
Amen.
so you are writing your book. We are writing our book. So Lee, thank you for sharing part of your book with us today. Thank you for sharing your passion, which is in your book. Thank you for sharing your heart, which is in your book. Thank you for sharing your love, which is in your book. Thank you for sharing your faith with us in our book. Thank you for sharing your love for your wife with us in our book. Thank you for sharing your love for your grandchildren. Thank you for sharing your love for your country, which is in your book. Ladies and gentlemen, I've shared with you, even though we have challenges in life, but we can rise up and love our brothers. And that's what Win with Wille Leadership Talk Show is all about. It's teaching us how to love, how to overcome, how to lead on, how to serve on, how to grow on. In the midst of everything, remember, the best gift that we can give our family and our community is the best version of ourselves. And how do we become the best version of ourselves? What Lee has talked about today is that we must learn to lead ourselves and lead our family well. He approached leadership is about what you're doing and the legacy that you are leaving. So tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And if you don't tune in next Wednesday, go back and play Lee Scott's video. Listen to what he is sharing with you. Repeat it and repeat it, because he just shared his love for us and his love for mankind. So guess what? I'm tuning out for today, but I'm tuning in to what Lee has shared. I want you to tune in to what Lee has shared. So I will see you next week on Win with Willie Leadership Broadcast. Be blessed and be blessed and be blessed.